Hello everyone, my name is Stephanie Iwan, and my topic is advancing towards regionalization. If we look back at the history of 21st century, the global center of gravity was firmly anchored in the West, specifically across the Atlantic between North America and Europe. But as we move further into the 21st century, that map is being redrawn. We witnessing fundamental realignment of international power dynamics. This is just a temporary economic trend or a flash in the pan. It is a steady, historic migration towards Asia. Today, Asia economic scale and geopolitical influence are no longer just emerging, they are comparable to and in some sectors surpassing the traditional powerhouses of the West. Today, we will explore the mechanics of Asian regionalization and why this shift is the defining story of our era. Think of it is as a homecoming for century before the industrial renovation. Asia was the world's economic heart. What we see today, it's just a new trend. It's the restoration of historical balance, but its time, it's powered by high-tech supply chains, digital integration, and massive middle class that did exist 50 years ago. To truly grasp the magnitude of this shift, we have to look at the data. Asia is home to more than half of the entire human population, that is billions of people who represent both an immense labor force and increasingly the world's largest consumer market. But it's not just about population. Let's talk about purchasing power parity or PPP. According to recent data, Asia now produces 3/10 of the total global output. This is a critical metric because it shows that the region is just a factory for the West anymore. It has developed significant internal wealth. Consider the sheer density or economic activity from the tech hubs and Shenzhen and Bangalore to the financial corridors of Singapore and Tokyo. The interconnectedness it is starting. We are just looking individual success stories like China or Japan. We're looking at the uh, flywheel effect. As one nation climbs the value chain, it creates a vacuum that is never filled, create a self-sustaining cycle of industrial evaluation. Why does this matter? Because while traditional Western economics are seeing a stabilized, slower growth, Asia's consistent record the highest growth rates globally. This dynamics makes the region the primary engine of the global economy. When Asia grows, the world grows. When Asia stalls, the world feels the fiction. Beyond the spreadsheet and GDP graphs, there's a profound human story. For centuries, many parts of Asia were defined by a persistent struggle with extreme poverty. One of the greatest achievements of the last few decades has been the breaking of this historical cycle. In many nations, extreme poverty has been eradicated or is finally within sight of being overcome. This is what economics called social transformation of the continent. We've seen hundreds of millions of people transition from subsistence farming to stable manufacturing job and now into the professional service sector. This is just about money. It's just about access to education, healthcare, and digital world that has was once out of reach. However, success creates new expectation as a country move beyond basic survival and initial industrialization. The social contract changes. Citizens are no longer satisfied with growth at any cost. The younger generation in Asia, the digital native are natives are demanding more than just a paycheck. They want clean air, ethical governance, and a voice in their future. There is growing urgent demand for growth that's sustainable and inclusive. This means that for regionalization to succeed, it must address environmental responsibility and ensure that the Asian miracle doesn't just benefit the elite but reaches every level of society. It has always been a smooth ride. You might remember the skeptics during the Asian financial crisis of 1997 and 1998. Back then, many crises uh, agreed that Asian rise was fluke and the bubble that had finally burst. The headlines of the late 90s were filled with prediction of a lost decade of the East. But history tells a different story. The crisis did signal the end. It served as a brutal but necessary turning point. It forced nations to reform their banking system, transparency, and fiscal politics. That rather than collapsing, the region used that period to build a more stable foundation. They learned the reliance on short-term foreigner foreign capital was a vulnerability leading to the creation of massive uh, foreign exchange reserve and regional safety nets like the Chiang Mai initiative. This resilience is a core pillar of Asia regionalism. It proved that Asia economic foundation are robust enough to weather global volatility. Even during the 2008 global recession and more recent pandemic disruption, Asia supply chains remains the world's lifeline. Instead of retreating from the world stage, Asian nation doubled down on the idea and their future dependent on being integrated both regionally and globally. So what is the next step? To move from a collection of power nation to a truly integrated region, there's a price to pay. Cooperation. Through regionalism requires a significant of some nation sovereignty to gain the benefit of massive, seamless regional markets. Nation must be will being narrowed than individual policy option to serve the collection good. This is tall order Asia at home to nation with vastly different political history and priorities. How do you align the interests of high-tech democracy with those of a developing society's sites? It requires a unique brand of diplomacy. However, the open regionalism model suggests that about creating a fortress Asia that shut out the rest of the world. Instead, it's about removing internal barriers, much like the US or India does within their own borders, to create a market that spans multiple nation economies. Through agreements like RCPE, RCEP, and the expansion of Asian, we are seeing slow but steady demasking or of trade wars. This is just about uh, tough toughers. It's about harmonizing digital standard, professional certification, and investment rules. This is the only way to balance regional growth with global stability. As we include, we must recognize that Asia rules has fundamentally changed. The region can no longer afford to be a passive participant in international affairs. In the past, Asia followed the rules set by the West. In the future, Asia will be a primary author of those rules. Because the world economy now depends on Asia's stability, Asia must step into a role of global economic leadership. This means taking the lead on its initiative that benefit the global commons, from climate change to trade regulation and social inequality. The challenges of the 21st century will be won or lost in Asia. If the regions succeed in creating a cohesive, peaceful, and green economic zone, it provides a blueprint for the rest of the world. If it fails, the global impact will be felt for organization. The rise of this region is an unpredicted historical event. By advising towards regionalization, Asia and it's just helping itself, it is securing the momentum of global progress for decades to come. Thank you for joining and discussion on the future of our integrated world.